Thank you all for being here. Welcome to the Womb Room. Most of you I do know. If I have yet to meet you, I am Peyton Callahan. I live here in Austin, Texas. And years ago, I had a club, a group organization for new moms called 24/7 Moms. And we would gather together. We would have experts come in and talk about a field of interest, and we would learn together. And it was a lifeline for me as a new mother. And so for me, this is a way to virtually continue that. I love learning with people, which is why I'm, choose to do something like Zoom as opposed to an Instagram Live, which doesn't feel like as intimate. And rather than just podcasting and filming. So I appreciate you making time to be here and learn with me today. So if you're able to join in the chat, and if you're interested, I would love to start before I introduce Maureen, who is a dear friend of mine from Austin. She was one of my first friends here. My question to you is, what made you register for today's conversation? What made you curious to be a part of this conversation? And if you're up for sharing, please type it in, and then I would love to share mine. Okay, hold on. So just some administrative details here. Okay, we got to get them in. Okay, one moment, guys. Okay, so whatever the reason was to be curious, I just want to say thank you. Maureen's going to present some information that I have found to be enormously helpful for me, and as I continue on this journey. So yes, feel free to log in the chat if you want to share anything. And then after Maureen and I discuss, if you want to jump on video, we can allow that opportunity at the close. Oh, thanks, Anna. I respect and admire you both. Love to gain wisdom from strong, grounded women. Not a heavy drinker, but a couple glasses of wines are hard to metabolize these days. I'm with you, Heather, and that does change as we approach the menopausal progression, when we'll talk more about that. 50s, I'm about to join too. Yeah, agreed. Okay, this is awesome. So Maureen, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you
For sharing your wisdom. And obviously you've been helping me on my journey to learn more and just get healthier in this stage of my life. Maureen Staloch, please, if you wouldn't mind, take a moment to explain to us, what it means to be sober curious, and what got you curious and on this journey.
for sure. Yeah. So first, I wanted to just say thank you. Thank you for using this platform to educate women, bringing us together. Like, no surprise, you do it so well, and it really is a special thing that you've created. And I think it's a perfect time to start talking about this with women, because we're kind of at this tipping point where women are just drinking a lot more for stress, and a lot of us don't know how to deal with that, and what the complications could be. And so I love sharing what I've learned in my journey. And so I appreciate you giving me a platform to do that. But let me just start by saying that my goal is to share this information with you, and for you to potentially gain a better understanding of alcohol, so how you can determine what your relationship with it is, and how you want to continue to use it or not. And sorry, I have a little tickle. But the other thing I want to say is that this is a safe space, so feel free to share. There's no judgment. And, I might ask again for you to participate in the chat, but feel free to write some notes down. There'll be time to ask questions later. And also, I am going to be presenting some information about the neuroscience of alcohol, And it's obviously at the surface level. So, there's so many layers to this, but it'll be kind of surface level so that we can all understand it. Okay, so I talk a lot about being sober curious, and what in the world does sober curious mean, right? So let me just ask in the chat, like, are you familiar with this term, and have you heard it before? Do you know what it means?
Learned it from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, this may be a silly question. Can you see the chat too?
I
You're
can. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm still
Yeah.
gonna only heard
Okay.
it through you,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Melinda. Jamie, yes. Haven't heard it before. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So it looks like some of you are familiar, but let me give you a definition so we can all be on the same page. So basically, being sober curious means that you've started to question your relationship with alcohol and how you want to navigate our alcohol obsessed culture. You've become more aware of why you drink, when you drink, and how you feel after you drink. And some people that are sober curious, they just want to cut back on their drinking and drink only when they have a clear plan or intention. And then there's others like me that have just decided that it doesn't resonate with me anymore, and I don't want that kind of relationship with alcohol. So it doesn't mean that you're an alcoholic, you need to go to rehab, you've hit rock bottom, anything like that. It's just a choice that you can make to be more aligned with what you want in your life. And I think it's really important, and I'm going to ask this here, is I just want to know how many of you have in the past tried to cut back on your alcohol usage or stop drinking altogether?
And while you take a turn to answer, I'll start.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity when I was going through a really challenging time. I reached out to Maureen, and was completely sober for the 100 days over 4 months. And I gained some enormous wisdom from that. Post-COVID had to make a big cutback. Okay.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
for me, it was like I felt like my ritual had become a little too habitual.
Yeah. I love
Where
that.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like if I had to check at a doctor's office how many drinks per week, you know how sometimes they ask you that? I'm like, I'd be like every day.
Hmm.
So same here.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll
Yeah.
share more about, the wisdom I gained from working with you. But yeah, go ahead and answer these. But for me, it
Yeah,
was,
for
yeah,
sure.
it became
And
a
so unfortunately, what happens is if we're unsuccessful in our attempts to cut back or to stop drinking altogether, we start to think that there's something wrong with us, right? We're like, oh my gosh, I just don't have the willpower to stop drinking. Or worse, we start to think, oh my gosh, I'm really addicted. But the truth is that a lot of times we're going about it the wrong way, and we're trying to control the alcohol instead of opening up new neural pathways to a different reward. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but that is essentially, it might be a different point of view for you to look at it. It's not necessarily about needing the willpower, because there's only a limited amount of willpower. Eventually we're going to cave, and so we just need to learn different tactics and different techniques.
Let's talk a little more about the willpower, because
Mhm.
what I did find after, I thought I would, okay, I'll have some drinks occasionally after my, time off. And then there was a little part of me that felt almost a little bingy, or it was, like I would go through, it was like, oh, wait, it's sometimes hard for me to stop, or I would be like, well, I'm having a drink tonight, so I might as well have two, because
Mhm.
tonight's the night I'm having a drink. And
Yeah.
so I got a little rebellious, I felt like sometimes. And then I didn't understand what was going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have willpower to stop. Like what? And so I've definitely experienced that and then beat myself up,
Yeah.
or have maybe not decided to do dry January because I didn't want to fail if I had a drink. And
Yeah.
then, continue with that shame cycle. So I've definitely experienced this willpower thing, and it's hard not to just think I'm just weak.
Right. And I love to address this where we're human, we're going to fail, we're going to get back up, we're going to try again, right? And it makes me think about this homily one time that I heard a priest say during Lent, and he was talking about, you know, for those of you that have fallen off your Lenten sacrifice, it's okay. Just start again where you are. And I think that that's really important, and a good kind of mindset to use when you're trying to change your relationship with alcohol. It's hard. I mean, most of us have been drinking for a very long time, so it's not, it's not unexpected that we would have some starts and stops. I think it's really common.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So you mentioned neural pathways and things
yeah.
like, can you dive a little more into the science?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. So, one of the best resources that I've discovered for understanding the alcohol and effects it has on your brain is the Huberman Lab podcast, episode 86. I highly recommend this episode. It's
Okay.
2 hours long. I'll warn you, it's 2 hours, but it's worth it. It is just gold, and it's Dr. Andrew Huberman is a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford. And he goes really deep into the effects of alcohol on your brain and body. And pretty much every question, again, that you've ever had about alcohol, he answers in this 2 hour session. But I've decided that I'm going to break it down to the four things that I really found to be most helpful when I was listening to that, or just most impactful. The first one is that there has been so much debate over the years of whether or not alcohol, any amount of alcohol is good for you. And the truth is that no amount of alcohol is good for you. And in fact, the Canadian Center for Substance Abuse and Alcohol Addiction recently shared their research findings that said 3 to 6 standard drinks a week increases your risk of cancer.
Wow.
So a standard drink is a glass of wine, is a beer. And so that really kind of startled me. That's pretty profound. And then the American Cancer Society also reported that alcohol increases the risk of 7 different types of cancer, and especially breast cancer.
Thanks.
In fact, there was a really important study in the 80s that made this connection between alcohol use and breast cancer. The 1980s. It's a shame that we haven't been talking about this, and women haven't gotten this information. And luckily, fortunately, it's changing now, and we're starting to be more informed. Okay, so second takeaway from that episode is that alcohol is fat and water soluble, allowing it into the cells and tissues. And so why is this significant? Well, other substances can only attach itself to cells, but not actually enter the cells and change their molecular composition, which happens with alcohol because it can cross those barriers. And they think that this is one of the reasons that there's such a relationship to alcohol and breast cancer, because it can actually pass through those cells.
I would think it would have, the effect of, because we're cyclical, because our hormones shift, that it makes it more challenging to metabolize based on where our estrogen levels are. So, I mean, it makes
know that.
also,
Yeah.
as we're approaching the menopausal progression, for those of you who are, why we're so hypersensitive. I think many of us start to become, oh my goodness, used to, I could have one drink and
Totally.
now, yeah.
Now it's Russian roulette with 2 glasses of wine. You never know. You never know how you're going to feel. Yeah.
Totally.
So,
Excuse
yeah.
me.
And so then, speaking of metabolizing, the third takeaway is the type of alcohol that humans consume is ethanol. And as we metabolize ethanol, it's converted into acetaldehyde, which is a toxic substance. So the feeling of being drunk is because of the acetaldehyde, actual poison. It's disrupting these neural circuits in our brain. So we're willingly poisoning ourselves, and that's why we slur our speech and stumble, because of the acetaldehyde being, being toxic in that metabolization stage.
I call that talking in cursive.
I love that. That makes so much sense. Yeah. Okay. And then the fourth takeaway is that after consuming alcohol, the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in planning, the suppression of habitual behavior, thinking, basically, when you're drinking, that part of your brain goes offline. And so this leads to an increased impulsive and habitual behavior. And chronic drinking strengthens these neural circuits associated with habitual behavior. So basically, with our prefrontal cortex offline, the lower part of our brain that's in charge of habitual behavior takes over. And so think about it like your neural pathways being a highway system. There are several different exits to get you to where you want to go, but you particularly like this one route, right? Your route to alcohol is the one that you like.
Yeah.
And because you take this route over and over again, it becomes this big, well-paved highway. It's well lit, the lanes are big. You don't have to think much.
Bonnets are blooming alongside.
Totally. And you don't have to think too much about it because you take this route so often, right? That it's the path of least resistance for you. And because we're pleasure-seeking humans, we start to use this neural pathway to get us that immediate hit of dopamine that alcohol gives us. And our brains start to build that neural pathway to make it easier for next time.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
it makes it more challenging to quit,
yeah.
and why we crave. Okay.
Definitely. And so okay, so how do we open up new neural pathways, right? It sounds really, medically sophisticated, but really what it comes down to is changing your habits. And so how do we do that? The way that we do that is that we have to bring our behavior back up to the prefrontal cortex and out of that automatic habitual center in our lower brain. And we can do this by being mindful and aware of why we drink, when we drink, and how we feel about ourselves after we drink. Yeah. And so let's talk about why we drink. So put your whys, if you want to share, put your why in the chat. Why do you like to drink?
Okay, if anyone's able to share, and then I'll jump in.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, relaxation, fun social, love a glass of wine with dinner. I'm more relaxed. I'm for sure more relaxed. Just kind of the kickoff at the end. Yep, I relate to all of these.
For sure.
I would love to share mine. Yep. Okay. So what I realized, so I've had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to work with Maureen, which really helped me evaluate and bring awareness to why I'm reaching for a glass of wine. And what I noticed are a couple of things. One, having a glass of wine for me meant that I got to take a break from my responsibility. It was, okay, I have a break now. I get to sit. I'm not like in charge of anyone right now, whether it be like, I'm out and I'm not with the kids or whatever. But for me, it was given me, which is a significant, reason underneath it all. Right. The other thing I noticed is I was really craving in the afternoons. Now, many of you are moms. I noticed, when people used to call you when your babies were little, at like 4 or 5, and you're like, who calls a mom at 4 or 5? Like, it's the most chaotic time of the day. Well,
Mhm.
fast forward a few years, where I have teenagers now, and my chaos has is gone. My kids come home from school, or they're in after, and they want some downtime by themselves, or they're, with their friends after school. And I all of a sudden felt this like loneliness
Right.
during that time of
Yeah.
like, I'm prepping dinner by myself. The house was so quiet. It was so calm, and I was completely uncomfortable in that situation. And I
Yeah.
just missed connection.
Mhm.
And I think there's these deeper parts of it, like when you really sit with, you know, the drives um of that, I really got to, of like why I was really craving that drink at home, during the weekday. So
Yeah.
those are the big ones for me. It's like just really truly feeling lonely at that time of the day, kind of not knowing what to do with myself, and feeling a little bored, and then appreciating if I was out, like just taking a break from like feeling over responsible for life.
Okay, so let me ask you, and everybody here too, who's interested in cutting back or quitting, now list the reasons why you want to cut back. So we understand the reasons of like de-stressing, socializing, um, relaxing, right? But now let's talk about why you want to cut back.
Yeah. For me, I want to be a good example to my kids. I don't
Mhm.
want them to think that going out to dinner with someone always looks this way, always involves alcohol. A lot of events that we do tend to, be, I think, alcohol heavy in some of their events and things.
Mhm.
And while I feel like I tend to be, I can be a good example of moderation,
Yeah,
it's like it's an example of moderation, not necessarily not having it.
yeah.
And so for me, that's a big one. And then also shame overs. Like,
Mhm.
I realized my 100 days of like not drinking with you, that I woke up with a lot of anxiety to start my day, which meant I was a little nauseous, which means I
Mhm.
wasn't like eating well during the day, like, and to start my day. And I would feel shame of like, oh, I had a glass of wine again. Or, I was drinking in front of the kids, even though I have, grown kids, mine are 21, 18, 17, also very important ages.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Well, if you look at those two lists, right, like why you drink and why you want to cut back or have more control, this is what's called cognitive dissonance,
Okay.
right? So, cognitive dissonance is when our behaviors are in conflict with a belief system that we hold.
Mm.
And so, how do we reconcile this cognitive dissonance? One of the best ways to repair this and the conflict, that the dissonance we have about our drinking and desire to cut back, is to practice mindfulness in our daily life.
Okay.
And again, what does that mean? It keeps things back up here. Like we keep it back up in our prefrontal cortex. And so, especially when we're trying to change a behavior, we need to be really mindful. We need to bring things back up to the prefrontal cortex so that the automatic system
Yeah.
of our brain is not in charge anymore. You know, we can create that pause there and be really mindful. Okay, why do I want to drink right now? And it just brings everything back up into the prefrontal cortex where we're in charge instead of the automatic system. Um, so when we practice mindfulness, we notice our emotions and triggers for alcohol, and we can interrupt that pattern, that immediate response to grab a glass of wine. So by simply naming the emotion, I'm bored, right? I'm lonely. This kind of takes the power away from the emotion and lets us be in charge. So, for example, these are the typical emotional triggers that create an urge to drink, and substituted with a mindful practice instead of just reaching for that glass of wine. So like that feeling of I'm stressed, right? Instead of grabbing a glass of wine, you can exercise, you can do breath work, you can walk outside. Outside, being in nature, swear it's the cure for everything.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Um, I'm sad. You journal, you take a bath, you cuddle with your puppy or your loved one. It's sounds simple, but they are interruptions to that habit of using the alcohol to buffer these emotions.
That's the pattern interrupt. And that's what
Yes.
we're wanting to do. Okay, keep giving us ideas. I find
Yes.
it very helpful. So
Well, if you're anxious, right? Anxiety, alcohol is the worst thing for anxiety. It only makes anxiety worse because it increases your cortisol levels, and it's just,
so good at first though.
oh, it feels great. And then it just like everything spikes out of control and you feel worse, your anxiety increases actually. Um, so anxiety and motion, just you have to like physically move that energy out of your body. So walking again, running, yoga, literally just shaking it out. Like it's just anxieties can be, movement can be just take wonders at taking the anxiety out of your body. And even,
In trampoline, I love that. I love
my
my
gosh, that's
tramp.
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
I haven't been
Trampoline.
using it for this, Melinda, but I
Yeah.
got one.
But even on the positive side, like if you're excited or you're feeling elevated about going to a party or being with friends, like just be present with that excitement and let your own like natural high be there instead of artificially magnifying it with the alcohol.
Hmm.
Because then you don't know, like, is it the alcohol or am I really excited?
Yeah.
So we lose that ability to discern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have anyone have any questions? And then I would love to share a few of the things that I learned from you that I found very interesting. Um, let's see, I didn't write them down. Okay. I I've realized that it was putting almost like a layer over my presence. Like
Mhm.
I felt like a little more calm. It took off the edge, but I could feel it was almost like I had a veil between me and like the
Hmm.
kids or the family.
Yeah,
For
that's
me, I'm sharing it because like
yeah.
where my work is, what I'm sitting with is like, okay, why does that feel better for me right now?
Mhm.
You know?
That's really descriptive. I love the way that you said that. At the veil. And it's another way that I like to talk about it is buffering. And it's just it buffers. It kind of it like you said, it takes the edge off. It makes things just a little smoother, right?
So how did you stop?
Well, it was interesting because I didn't have these techniques. I didn't have this knowledge when I stopped. I just knew that I stopped during the pandemic, which right makes no sense. Like everybody else started drinking, and I was like, no way, because I just was at the point where I got nervous. I could see where this was going, and I thought, who do I want to be at the end of the pandemic? And I mean, you have nothing but time to create this, and so I really focused on cutting back, and little did I know that I wouldn't ever go back to drinking. But ultimately, what's that?
Just taking a break.
Yeah, I was like, I just need to not end this pandemic being, just out of control. That was my goal. Yeah. But I did these things without knowing that I was doing these things. This is what I did. I just started these mindfulness practices that took me out of that pattern. It took me out of that automatic response. And I like to talk about um, emotions, that we have in drinking, because first of all, it's been proven that women are more apt to drink to decrease stress than men are. And so it brings a lens to, why we're drinking, to, de-stress, feel more comfortable in social situations, all of those things. And I like, um, it was a simple hack for me in learning that once you can accept and appreciate your negative emotions and just let them be there, that it's a normal part of our human experience, it gets so much easier to not feel like, oh crap, something's wrong with me. We don't talk about the fact that everybody has negative emotions, right? There's a concept that I love called the 50-50 concept. And it talks about how, as in our human experience, we have 50% negative emotions and 50% positive emotions. Not to say that half our life is bad and half our life is good, but as humans, we have all of these emotions in existence, right? But when we feel bad, when we have negative emotions, we think that there's something wrong with us. We feel bad about feeling bad, right? And we're taught to, be in this pursuit of happiness at all times. And I don't disagree with that quest, but I just look at it differently now with this concept of 50-50. And um
Well, I feel like when we can be with, feel the fullness,
for
the
sure.
range of our emotions, that's when we can truly start to find joy, when we can really sit and be with them, you
Yeah.
know.
And I like to talk about the fact that if we didn't have negative emotions, you wouldn't be able to discern how good positive emotions are. You need the negative to experience the positive. And I also like to think now, the way I think about my negative emotions is that I know they're part of my experience as a human. And so I know they're going to show up, right? Like like an out of town guest. The out of town guest, it's on your calendar, you've planned for them to come, and right? It's the same thing, like, "Oh, I'm stressed today. I knew you were coming." Right? I had you on the calendar. Um and so same thing, like a guest, you can welcome them in, you can sit with them for a while, and
Not
then they
offer them a drink.
not offer them a drink, but then they leave. Like eventually they're going to leave. And that's the same thing with negative emotion. You don't have to buffer it. Um, so, that's the problem, was that because we start to feel bad that we feel bad, then we start to try to buffer with alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were working together, I found it enormously helpful. And it seems, you guys, it seems so basic and so simple, but for real, was making a plan of like, oh, okay, went to dinner. Okay, well, are you, so am I going to have a drink or not? And you said, decide right now while we're talking. Are you going to have a drink when you go to dinner tonight or not? And I said, no. And so you were like, okay, so when you go to dinner tonight, you're not going to have a drink. What are you going to order? It was ginger ale. So I ordered a ginger ale. And when I got, to dinner that night, I was with Cal, and the waiter came in and said, what can I get you to drink? And I'm like, a ginger ale. But it sounds so simple. But that being said, it gave me a new like plan. I needed the plan. Otherwise, I'd have been like, am I drinking tonight? I don't know. No, okay, I'll just have a glass of wine, you know.
And
But it
and
really
truly,
helped me to like
yeah, yeah. But there's two ways to look at like your relationship with alcohol and controlling it. Either you just don't drink and you take away all that mental gymnastics about like, am I going to drink? How much am I going to drink? Do they know I've had too much to drink? Like all of that just goes away. Or you can be really specific and disciplined in setting a plan and sticking to it. And if you mess up, you think about it in the morning, you think about what happened, right? You evaluate what happened, how did I mess up, and then you just start again, and eventually that neural pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger. But that's what it is you sit down for dinner. I had this experience all the time before I stopped drinking. For whatever reason, Jack Allen's was so triggery for me.
It's
and
a restaurant here in Austin.
And I would, because we used to go there like after the kids' basketball games as a group, and it was really fun. But I would sit down, and if the waiter waitress was taking too long, I'd be like, go up to the bar and order a drink. Like it was just so habitual that I would sit down, order a drink, and it just was part of that pathway, and I was excited. I was, maybe socially a little bit nervous. And I just knew like if I had that first glass of wine, it was all going to be good from there. So really having a plan in those situations, trying something different, but sticking to it of like, I'm going to order the ginger ale. You started to break that cycle.
Okay. Or even I know when we've talked before, it's like when I drink, I
Mhm.
have blank drinks. So
Yes.
made that like personal commitment. And then so it's like tonight, okay, I'm having this. And
Yeah.
maybe elaborate a
Well,
little.
it takes it out of that space that you were feeling that it was you were kind of rebellious, because you were feeling deprived. When you have that powerful statement of, for me, it's like I just don't drink,
Okay.
and it's not, and it just somehow that is more powerful than I can't drink, or I mean, it just brings it back to yourself, and the same thing of setting a plan of um, saying something like, I'm trying to cut back on my drinking. Well, that is not very powerful.
Have like the social pressure. Why? Is something wrong? Anything happened? I mean, I'm sure everyone has experienced that of
Yeah. Yeah.
just, having to deal with that. So, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So it's just a point of power in yourself of like, no, I've got this. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to do this and this, instead of like, oh, I'm going to go and, I'm going to try really hard not to drink. That's just, you're just looking to fail there. Let's see what this. Yeah, I love that. I love that, Melinda. Engaging a partner to help you with this, help support you with this. She says that she uses her husband in that situation to say, like, I'm only going to have X amount of drinks if I order another one. She said that he gently puts his arm on there and just like it's an indicator, it's another interrupter. Anna, tell me what you were talking about. What your question is? What about all the mocktails? I'm all for the mocktails. I mean, it allows me to feel social without breaking my commitment. So
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking that, I think that we need higher education about all the mocktails that are available that are healthy. There's a lot of
yes,
stuff that's really, really healthy, and it just kind of reframes your thinking around, alcohol.
yeah, for sure.
I love that. And also, I don't know if you're like this, but I like drinking out of fancy glasses, I've discovered.
Yeah.
I'll put like my sparkling water in a wine glass just because it makes me feel like
And
holding.
I mean, and there's so many good now. There's the non-alcoholic industry is just, it's booming. It is booming, 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 and it's going to overtake the alcohol industry someday. It will.
I
And
like
my
vodka cherry too. I'm sorry with the K. I've been trying that. It's some like herbs, but you sprinkle a couple of it and add like sparkling water or whatever.
Yeah. What
Anyway,
is it called? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Carrie with a K.
Okay.
I'm trying it out. So any other recommendations, please let us know too for the
Well,
mocktail.
I'm a huge ginger beer fan. It just tastes like a yummy cocktail, and it just, it's good for your stomach, and you feel like you're having something special. So, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Um, I'm looking through my notes. I want to be mindful of time. If
yeah.
your beer with a lime. Oh, I love that. Okay, Hill. Um, is there any other things that I know you and I had talked about that maybe we've missed, and then we'll open it up to some questions.
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about is like in terms of using alcohol to regulate your emotions and buffer your emotions. I like to give the analogy of a beach ball, of the beach ball representing your negative emotions. And when we buffer with alcohol, we are, basically stuffing that beach ball underneath the water, right? And so, but what happens with a beach ball or your emotions that you stuff, eventually they pop back up, and sometimes even worse or more significant than before. So, buffering our emotions with alcohol is just, it's just not productive.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, I do want to talk a little bit about the alcohol industry and women, and how alcohol lies to us, specifically the industry. Yeah,
Please.
if you're open to that. But um, it's interesting because the alcohol industry uses the same tactic that the tobacco industry used years ago. And they saw women as an untapped market, and so really started marketing towards us to get us to buy into the fact that women, if you drink, you're more sophisticated, or you need alcohol to be a calm, tolerant mother. Those things are just absurd, and I hate that we've been duped to believe that, because you look at the advertisements for alcohol, and we're just bombarded. We're bombarded. Our kids are bombarded with these images of, glamorizing alcohol. And until recently, the alcohol industry used kind of an engineered controversy. Same thing that the tobacco industry did years ago, in that they would say things like, "There's just not enough research that to say whether or not alcohol is good or bad for us."
But you were
Luckily,
saying we've had these research projects back in from the 80s.
in the 80s, right? And so, but luckily now we're at the stage of like, there's too much research. They can't really say that anymore. And so terms like drink responsibly, that puts the onus back on us, when actually it's the alcohol that's the problem. It's not us, it's not our, willpower. They make it to be addictive, that's the point. And alcohol has kind of become the modern day, Valium that doctors, would prescribe years ago to, relieve our stress and, make us, feel more relaxed or whatever. And honestly, it's making it worse for us. It's increasing our stress levels, our anxiety. And, these are techniques that the alcohol is doing to sell us coping mechanisms instead of offering us solutions. And that's what we need. We need solutions as women, how to relieve our stress. So back to the mindfulness practices and engaging that prefrontal cortex. So
Okay, becoming more mindful.
yeah.
I as a mindfulness practice. I was once taught, notice what you notice.
Mhm.
So notice it, and then notice what you've noticed about it. Have a pattern interrupt. So, if you're feeling tired, take a bath, power nap, journal, or sad. Feeling anxious, go for a walk, trampoline, more movement oriented. If you're feeling lonely, call someone, connect, ask a loved one in the house to go for a walk with you or something.
Yeah.
Um, give us a plan.
Yeah.
We do drink and the shame creeps in of like, "Ugh, I made it 10 days and now I'm on a day 11. I had a glass of wine." Any tips? I love the comment, start where you are.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna write that on my
Yeah.
mirror for myself. Any
Well,
other
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the shame over just is another example of that cognitive dissonance, right? The shame is teaching you something, and so if you can just dive into that a little bit more of like where the shame is coming from, and and work those mindfulness practices, sitting and making a plan, because it's actually teaching you something. And if you can recognize it as a teacher, that's a better way to look at it.
Okay, that's helpful to me.
Yeah.
I recently, okay, sorry, but side note, I recently, Melinda, you may remember this. I recently got an infection in my eye, and it was because, chemical splashed in me. But, you know, those of you know me know I believe that our body's constantly trying to communicate what it needs emotionally, physically, energetically. And so for me, it's like, okay, why did I draw in that accident of this, splashing these chemicals in my eye? And Melinda sent me a clip of, you know, interpreting your body's messages. Louise Hay, which I love her work. And it was Melinda, you may remember, but it's vision of like not liking how you're perceiving your life right now. And for me, what came up for me, and Melinda, if I got that wrong, it was like I don't like seeing this in myself
Mhm.
of having this, need or, and it felt like it served its purpose, but like not anymore, right? It
Right.
served its purpose, and now it's not sustainable for me, for my health and
Right.
for all the things I want to do. So that
Yeah,
was just another like way my body was like, okay, I want to get your attention.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to share, if I can get in here. I'm going to share just a couple um, quotes that I love about drinking, because they help me. I like having a mantra, right, and that I need to think about, during times like that. So, um, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but something important to me is no feeling lasts forever, and nothing requires a drink.
Oh yeah, we come up with all kind of excuses.
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
loved your post recently. Like, you know, this isn't obviously it's not quoted, but like, oh, I have a wedding. I am tired. I'm celebrating. I'm stressed. It's Tuesday.
I
Like,
mean, there's literally always a reason to drink. There just always is. And once we've gotten to the age that we are, like it just becomes so habitual and part of our community. And that was true for me for sure, is that, looking from the outside, people wouldn't have ever, thought that I had a problem with alcohol, because I didn't, in terms of the community and the people that I was with, but it started to be a problem for me. And so that's where, you really, the why I drank, when I drank, and how I felt after I drank became really important.
okay.
So, yeah. What else?
We have questions. I love that you shared the mantras. Those are very helpful.
Yeah.
I will say that has it been almost 4 years that you've been on your
April 13th will be 4 years.
wow. Um,
Yeah.
and just to see the changes in
Mhm.
you, I know from your health and like
Yeah.
how you perceive yourself. I've seen
Mhm.
that enormous clarity.
For sure.
And as you've expressed this newfound freedom
Mhm.
and what that means for you, but it's enormously inspiring for me.
Aw,
To see, and for you, it was when you were really trying to balance hormones
yeah,
and get that, in balance moving through the menopausal progression. For you, like that just makes it more difficult for us. It just does.
yeah,
And so seeing you move through that. So not only did I see your anxiety level go from here to here
yeah,
dramatically, your body responded. I saw a lot of changes in your bodies and your energy levels.
for sure. Yeah.
And really,
Well,
really,
it was the classic example of like my menopausal symptoms. I had a lot of anxiety, and so I was drinking to try to calm the anxiety, and then it just exacerbated it, and it just made it so much worse. So it was just that really was a cycle that was hard.
sure.
Yeah,
For me, I've noticed weight gain, which I've never had. And so yes, my hormones are fluctuating. So I'm riding that. Also was going through some super challenging times, which we tend to hold weight for protection, understood. Also, now I have this, little daily dose, even if it's small amounts that add up and not helping
yeah,
that, so that was new for me. And so obviously another reason why I want to feel great in my body and I want to be healthy for my kids so I can do all
yeah.
that stuff. And yeah.
Well,
Um,
if you'll let me share, I
I want,
wrote something.
oh yeah, I would love for you to share. I want to read real quick. Can we look at the comments real quick
I
before?
didn't see that. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Heather.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's how I felt. I'm like, it's just not serving me anymore. Like, it's just not serving me. It did for a while, but it just, I
That's
just,
Yeah, it's like it served its purpose. And then I think the reason we're all curious is because we're at that point of like it has served a purpose and now may not feel super sustainable and may not feel as an alignment. So we're wanting to change our relationship to get in right relationship with this thing we know as alcohol.
and speaking of relationships, so, for me, like my relationship with alcohol was really a relationship. Like I had a love-hate relationship with it. And I almost found it to be, you know, um, human in a way, that the alcohol was this person that I was in a relationship with. And so I wrote something that kind of talks about how I feel now, that I'm not in that relationship anymore. And I'd love to share it with you guys. Um, so it says, I left you in London by the bedside table. There was no room in my suitcase for all of your lies. Your scent only haunts me, and your whisper makes me despise who I am when I'm with you.
Mm.
You can't hold me, you can't find me, because now I'm finally free. Without you, I'm more of me. There were good times, that is true, but it's hard to know what was me and what was you. You'll never change. I won't be fooled. I choose this calm, this peace, and I don't care if you approve. You can't hold me, you can't find me, because now I'm finally free. Without you, I'm more of me. You want me back, it's clear, but there are no strings for you to pull. I rise, I've grown. My love within is the only secret now, all my own. You can't hold me, you can't find me, because now I'm finally free. Without you, I'm more of me. Thank you for letting me
I
share
am here.
that. So I really, this was has been a profound journey for me, because I realized I started drinking at such a young age that I gave up so much of myself. And and now I just feel like more of me, and it's been really impactful for my marriage and for my kids, and obviously for my health. So um, I just encourage you guys to keep being curious and keep looking within and finding ways that you can be mindful instead of buffering with alcohol.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for your time today. If you need a cheerleader, I'm here for you. I would love to be on this journey with whoever's interested. I'm working with Maureen, but would love cheerleaders on my team too. So please let me know if that's something you're interested in. Maureen, can you send the copy? I can email everyone.
Okay.
And then Maureen also gave me some information to send out, so I'll send it out via email. Thank you guys so much for making time. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for being here. Oh, beautiful. So I'll give you a couple minutes if you want to copy that, and then I'll follow up with an email. Maureen, love you.
Love you too.
Appreciate you.
I'm gonna put my contact and my website in the
That's
chat.
Stacy. That was supposed to be my job as the host to ask Maureen if
Oh.
people would like to work with you. How, how did they find and connect with you?
You're funny. This
How do they
technology,
come over to my house and visit?
right?
Here.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect. LiveSoberCurious.com. And her, because, you know, the new, what's your Instagram? Because also that's where people.
Yeah, that's true. It's good job. Good reminder.
Slumber party with mocktails at Peyton's. I'm in. Yes.
Yes, that sounds
If you
awesome.
may need to travel to visit.
Okay, that's my Instagram. So
Okay, I can't see anything right now because of the tears. So feel free to reach out. Adore you all. Have an awesome rest of your day. And stay tuned. We have some awesome speakers this year coming your way once a month. So we'll see you next time in the womb room. Love y'all.
thank you, everybody.